Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. As off-season tournaments continue to go down around the world, there's been some big roster talk over the last 24 hours or so, especially on the NRG Marved side, with the potential of Ethan, Demon1 and others potentially joining that franchise in the near future. Marved is seemingly making it quite clear that is his new direction in the next couple of days, but also T1 releasing King from their roster. Some speculation as to whether King could go back to DRX with the recent changes they made. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. There was also this from Boaster who spotted this kind of like Deadlock side thing. Basically says, like, give her another buff because Deadlock has been in an interesting position where she kind of has been pushed in the right direction, but not enough to make her viable in competitive play as it stands. So potentially more to come for Deadlock in the future. There's also this crazy story from yesterday, and I don't know really how other organizations and franchises are going to attempt to one-up this going forward. We have seen Crew Esports, they've got, of course, Sergio Aguero over there, and then recently they got, Lionel Messi, which is just absolutely wild. So they're going next level at these South American esports teams, and Loud are bringing on Vini Jr. Of course, very talented Brazilian footballer, currently plays, of course, for Real Madrid, and he is joining as effectively, as similar relationships those other guys have, a socio, I guess, is kind of like shareholder and brand ambassador in some ways. So, comes in, puts some money in, ownership stake in the team, ambassador for the team, really cool stuff. So I don't know where we're going next here, right? Like, I don't know who these other organizations are bringing in. A Sentinel's going to be able to get LeBron, what's happening here? I don't know, but I think it's really cool that Vinicius Jr. coming in as a new, Loud owner, co-owner, partner, shareholder, ambassador for this organization in a similar way to what's happening in Crew Esports, and I'm sure there'll be more to follow at this rate, especially when the footballers see guys like Vini and obviously Messi getting involved. I think, all right, maybe there's opportunities for other footballers to do similar things on some of these other top teams. Now, one of the big stories of this morning was this confirmation here from T1 that King will be terminated by mutual agreement. The contract with King, he will not be terminated himself, but the contract with him will be terminated. We will always support the future of him. So we made the decision to part ways via mutual agreement, wishing King the best. Now, this is a bit of a wild timeline, actually, because King, very good player, but he joined T1 just a couple of months ago now. This was on the 12th of September. They confirmed that Excret, Izu, and King were joining the roster. They then practiced or whatever behind the scenes. They then made the additional surprising confirmations of Rossi coming in, right? And King was then kind of out of the team. Izu, Excret still there. And let's be honest, they did pretty well most recently, right? I mean, they beat Edward Gaming, they beat Team Liquid in this pretty impressive series when it was Rossi, Excret, Sireplay, Izu, and Carpe who won the series, but no King to be found here. Eventually, they go down, of course, to PaperX. They get basically trounced here by PaperX, 13-7, 13-5, but still an impressive performance from them, and they move on to, their next adventures with a lot of optimism that Rossi was working out very well for the roster, given that questionable acquisition as it was at the time. But as you guys can see, there's no King anymore. Zeta here is the sub, and, King is out of there. So, where's he going, effectively, has been the question. And as King says, thanks for everything. It was an honor to be with you. Just a bit of a strange turn of events that King was there for just a couple of months and now he's gone again. This coincides somewhat with the situation at DRX. Just the other day, we saw that they've kind of confirmed that Flashback is definitely going to be a long-term, partner for those guys. I think they signed them until 2027. So if you guys aren't so familiar with this, just the other day, RB and Zest were effectively dropped from DRX. They've been moved to the restricted free agent list, which basically means we want to sell you. There isn't really any intention to bring those guys back, which is interesting because if they don't want to keep any of RB or Zest, and they're both RFAs, they're looking to move those players on, they'll only have 5 players on the team DRX. They've only got Mako, Stacks, Buzz, Flashback and Foxy9 as it remains. So there has been some rumours as to maybe, given that Flashback is the guy that they brought up in their academy, they're really happy about, but that team where they put Foxy9 in hasn't been crazy good, and maybe Foxy9 is a player that they really want to have on the bench possibly. So then we see this tweet here from Rossi when this initially was confirmed, saying only true Kings can replace these guys, which is potentially hinting now we have the news that King is leaving and parting in a mutual way with T1. could King be going, back to DRX effectively? That's one of the big rumors that's going around today, is that possibly they'll bring King in here maybe as a starting player. Foxy9 could step to the bench and then that's the roster they're going to go with. I don't really know. But, potentially that's what is on DRX's mind. We'll stay tuned to see if any of that actually happens. Now, speaking of Rossi, this was wishing him the very best, obviously, because as he says, after the Team Liquid game, he hit his head really hard on the top of the car trunk. I decided to push through the dizziness. I don't know how he managed this, but I think other players have suffered with this before, where they get a concussion, like, without really realizing it. They then try and play, they get super lightheaded, like they just can't play properly, lights are affecting them and all this stuff. A couple of days later, I went to the hospital, almost passed out during practice. After almost passing out during practice, thankfully, I only had a concussion. So he's at the hospital, he's recovering now quickly. So yeah, wishing Rossi the best, because yeah, pretty scary stuff, to be honest. Glad that I guess he's improving and doing well and it's not anything more serious than that. This is also a big talking point of yesterday. Excel, of course, have been a long time esports organization, Excel Esports. They're partnering with Giants going forwards, so effectively a merger. This is a pretty common thing in esports at the moment, where these organizations are merging a fair bit. There is some degree of consolidation across the industry, and you can understand it given how, loss heavy a lot of these teams are and how much they're just hemorrhaging money. So they're now going to be known as Giant X. So Giants and Excel merging to become Giant X. I don't really like this name. I guess it's better than Giant L, right? So that's what they're going with, but that's what they're going to be going forward, at least according to sources at the moment. There's also this story around the VCT China League that they will implement a salary cap. This doesn't, I believe, exist yet across the other leagues. It probably will at some point. Pretty common thing in esports generally. Now, there's always been concerns when you put a salary cap in whether you can actually uphold it by law, especially in California law. In order to uphold that actual salary cap itself, there needs to be some sort of counterparty, i.e. some sort of players' union. If that doesn't exist, you can't uphold the salary cap. But in certain countries, it's fine. That's what they're going to do. And maybe, okay, look, some of the players will make less than they would otherwise. But generally, this could be a positive thing for the league, because it means that you don't get organizations paying absolute insane money that just isn't sustainable long term to try and sign the top guys. They will have to be somewhat more frugal in the way they operate things. So I don't mind the salary cap at all. I think that there is some value to it existing, and apparently that's going to happen in China, because a lot of those organizations are pretty rich, to be fair. So maybe this will trickle down around the world as well. But as I say, it depends to some degree on whether they can actually execute that based on local laws and regulations. I think have been problems in the past on this one. Now, there's also this tournament, the Convergence tournament, going on right now. There's 6 teams here. Yesterday, there were 2 games. There's more coming up today. Gen.G versus True Rippers happened. This was a 2-1 for Gen.G. Their kind of debut with their new team. They didn't dominate or anything. Of course, Lakia didn't join that long ago, didn't exactly dominate the series. 13-9 first map, but then they won 13-6, 14-12 after a crazy overtime on the Haven. So, interesting debut for Gen.G. The other series that was causing a lot of talking points was Global Esports versus Vitality, right? This Global Esports team, again, an interesting roster, what they've done with it. Vitality should be a very good team this season. I really like this Vitality roster. Safe, runner, they're looking good. But still, it's not exactly stacked top to bottom with big names. But G didn't really get close here, 13-5, 13-7. So, yeah, Polvi, Lightning Fast, Rust, Blaze King, and Skills. It's caused a lot of a talk, especially from the Indian scene, understandably. It's like, look, if the team isn't going to be very good anyway, then at least let's do 5 Indian players, commit to it, rather than going for this, international team that doesn't really seem to be working. So, as I say, it's all early days. It's like the first series they played, so maybe give the team a bit more time, but it wasn't pretty, and then they play Furia next, which is probably not the team you want to play next, because they're actually, they're another legit team. So, yeah, Global Esports with some things to think about here. This is the main event we'll see for esports and everything play as well over the next, couple of days. I don't know, there's been a fair bit of talk on social media, just invest in 5 young Indian players, bring them up, even if they get slammed, then that's going to be better for the scene. The local scene stays alive, this type of stuff. And sure, Global Esports want results, they want to win, and they don't, they want to pick players on merit, but if they do that and it still doesn't work, then maybe there's alternatives they might want to potentially consider. Just quickly as well, Magnum has landed in Spain for a quick best-of-1 show match that KC are playing up against Heretics. So this is happening this afternoon. KC versus Team Heretics, best of one, I'm pretty sure as well. So I don't really know what else is going on, but it's just a show match, you know how it is. So exciting just to see loads of these teams are getting their debuts over the last couple of days. Now we've got to talk NRG as well. This NRG team, I don't know when they're going to confirm it, but it's got to be happening sometime soon, and Marved has been hinting it very heavily indeed. We know that Chet, the head coach of the team, said that just a couple of days ago they were going to lock down their analyst or inform their analyst who they're going to be for the upcoming season. So I imagine that's going to be confirmed relatively shortly. Even Chet says here back to Andy Miller, the CEO, got you this season 100% as your wish for us to potentially win or whatever. And then we have Marved, comes out with a series of tweets yesterday, which heavily imply that he's on the move. So Marved, we've thought, was joining NRG for a long time now. NRG Marved with Victor Crashies +2. The +2 was, Narrate was linked a while ago. We saw he joined KC just the other day. And now the big rumor really is around potentially Ethan and Demon 1. There's lots to say on that roster if it becomes true, on in-game leading, stuff like this. But Marved is going to be there almost for sure. Of course, he's played with some of those guys before in the Optic days, was most recently on Sentinels. So Marved says, hello, Los Angeles. Chet tries to say that he's still in Toronto, but maybe that's not the case, especially when, Subrosa says League of Legends bootcamp. So I don't really know what's happening here, but possibly Marved is likely he's out there with the team in LA, right? Because that's where those guys are based, ready for the new VCT season, getting some practice in. So I don't really think he tries to hide this at all when he then says, if a team offers me, I'm ready to win. So yeah, I imagine that Marved has probably got that contract signed. I wonder when it's happened, because usually when contracts are signed, the players tweet out, oh, I've signed the contract type thing. But that hasn't really happened on this occasion, in this case, I don't believe at least. So yeah, Marved he hasn't tweeted anything in a while. And then yesterday he goes on a rampage. We get FNS responding. We get some responding, of course, former NRG players. We then even get him wishing happy birthday to Andy Miller, the CEO. So just to take it even one step further, and then on top of that, we get, Get Spectrum joined NRG yesterday or something, and Marv then says, wow. So, he's getting involved in absolutely everything, right? Every tweet that NRG do, every announcement, Marv is there in the replies. So you can safely assume that this is probably coming true, reposting this due to recent events. So when will this be confirmed? We've known Marv is coming in for some time. The rest of the team, though, is where the big questions lie as far as I'm concerned. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.